Hey, how's it going, guys? This is Cyrus Jabbari, and I'm giving you my critique on movies and music. Why? Because expressing my opinion is a crime. And I'm a rebel. And speaking of rebels, today I'm going to be talking about the first in a series of Star Wars anthology films, Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Okay, I just want to get this out of the way. I am not a huge fan of that subtitle. I think that subtitle implies that this movie is like a picture book for 3-year-olds. Well, as long as it helps distinguish it from the main series of films, I guess it's alright. But let's just say there's more than one reason I'm just gonna call it Rogue One. So for those who didn't bother to look up the plot synopsis, Rogue One takes place before A New Hope, and is about a girl named Jyn Erso who ends up getting involved with a mission by the Rebel Alliance to steal the plans for a Death Star, since her father was one of the scientists who created the Death Star schematics, and the rebels rely on her to help them out with getting them. What happens from there? Just watch it and find out. It's been out for like a few months now, and besides, I'm not a very spoilerific guy, so sorry. Yeah, so early on I had some pretty high hopes for this movie, based on how epically epic The Force Awakens was. Even with just one movie under their belt, I was confident that Disney can consistently dish out some high quality Star Wars films throughout these next several years. Like, on top of that, almost every other film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been a huge hit. Yeah, especially since Disney bought the rights to Marvel, so really there wasn't much for me to get worried about. And so it turns out I was right not to get worried, because Rogue One is pretty great. It was for the most part what I hoped, pun intended, it would be. And that is a side story very much building on its own thing, while building upon the Star Wars lore. And it pulls off both those aspects pretty well. Like, whenever there is action on screen, it is absolutely exciting. I mean, it just goes to show how director Gareth Edwards really knows how to direct his action scenes. Whether it be the monster fights in the 2014 Godzilla film, or the space and on-foot battles in this film, Edwards has a good eye for choreographing that kind of stuff. Like in the past good Star Wars films, this movie also has a high sense of an epic adventure, which really helps to indicate that this is a Star Wars film in spirit, even if it isn't exactly like the main films, which is a good thing. It keeps its focus on being an espionage action film, while maintaining the traditional Star Wars elements and mythos. I guess the only two complaints I have is that the film sort of has some pacing issues and a few semi-flat characters. I mean, the middle act of the film sort of lost my interest due to the pacing of the film being a little bit sluggish compared to the opening. Yeah, but thankfully it really starts to pick up well into the third act. And while the film does keep the focus on its main characters, thankfully, but it tends to be on the pretty underdeveloped side of things with its supporting characters, such as Chirrut Îmwe, who is pretty awesome by the way, and especially his friend Base Malbus, without ever really giving them like enough development to have us really care for them. And that's such a shame, because it seemed like Chirrut had such a very interesting backstory and we never really go that much more in depth with it. Kind of a missed opportunity, so yeah. I mean, I probably would feel a bit different if all the characters had more of a personality to them, but a lot of time it seems like they're restraining their emotions during a lot of the scenes where they actually need to kind of go all out. I mean, that's the one aspect of a mediocre espionage film that I wish they didn't carry over to this film. I mean, it's kind of like the characters in the 2014 Goji film, where most of the characters besides Bryan Cranston are pretty bland. Now, with an occasional emotion thrown in here or there, and an occasionally good actor who just had to go and get killed during the first act. You really just couldn't be bothered with that film anymore, could you, Cranston? I mean, thankfully, the acting isn't nearly as wooden as it is in the prequel trilogy, but I still feel like it could have been more in line with how lively and energetic the characters were in The Force Awakens, and pretty much the original trilogy for that matter. It's like, hopefully in Edwards' future films, he will learn to just let his characters go all out whenever necessary. All that aside, it all pays off in the end, literally. With some great scenes that heavily borrow from elements of the original trilogy. I mean, it was especially nice to hear James Earl Jones as Darth Vader again. Even though his voice is kind of showing his age, but hey, that's just me. I didn't even pay special homage to A New Hope, like being a prequel to that after all, with the resolution that I won't spoil for you guys, but I will tell you, you Star Wars fans will be 100% satisfied with it, because my god, that scene is, or that whole ending for that matter, is amazing. I mean, bottom line, Rogue One is a pretty good Star Wars film. It really succeeds in giving a different, more gritty, actiony take on the Star Wars franchise than the usual, more fantastical elements that we're so familiar with, while at the same time really feeling like a genuine Star Wars movie. The pacing and characterization sort of makes it fall short of the original trilogy and Episode 7, but it's still a very good film in its own right. And definitely better than the prequel trilogy, although that's not a very hard feat to accomplish anyways. So I give Rogue One 4.2 Death Stars out of 5. Pretty good Star Wars film. Pretty good. Just that one last Death Star needs to finish construction in order for it to be perfect, so. Yeah, one last note I want to end off on is that considering this is the second Star Wars film by Disney in a row to be both a box office and critical hit, now I believe Rogue One is full proof that Disney, in conjunction with Lucasfilm, really knows how to handle this franchise. And we can ensure that the franchise has a very bright, if not a completely bright, future ahead of it. Like, I never thought I would be saying this years ago, but the Force is with the mouse. I really don't know how to feel after putting it that way. Anywho, that was my review of Rogue One. I expect to see more movie and album reviews down the line, whether you like it or not. But if you like this video and want to see more, be sure to like, comment, favorite, subscribe, hit the bell, like all the above, whatever. I also make short films, so if you want to see my short film work, be sure to go to my channel or the playlist that I should be on the screen at some point, hopefully. Future me, you better get onto that. And any other future channels that hopefully future me will also put up on the screen, so that way I don't look like a silly goose pointing my fingers everywhere. Showing your support would mean a lot to me and everybody else involved in these films, so be sure to check them out. Until next time, guys, gotta fly. Toodles.